All right. Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello, the Shepherd of Black Sheep. And today I'm going to go over how narcissists condition people to accept and be grateful for even the bare minimum. Now, what made me think about this was I was commenting with someone the other day, and they were just being so ridiculous. They kept on twisting and distorting what I was saying, giving me the least charitable interpretation, pulling things that I said to the black and white extreme, and they were belittling me, insulting me. And even so, if this person would have given me a little bit of approval and validation, it would have felt better considering it was even somebody I know, not very well or anything, but they were just being so antagonistic and hostile that it would have made their approval seem that much more powerful. And this is exactly what happens in a trauma bond with someone where narcissists in the beginning of a relationship, they will love bomb, they will future fake, and they will tell you everything that you want to hear. They might mirror and match your likes and dislikes and have the same hobbies that you have and have the same interests that you have. And they might say they want all of the same things. And so they get their foot in the door that way. Often they will rush to move in with you, rush to have a kid together, or rush to get married. And I went over the other day a few reasons why narcissists want to get married, because it doesn't seem like they would want to, right? But they do. They do for their own reasons. But that's what they'll do. And then after a while, you don't work as the source of supply that you once did in the beginning. Positive supply for narcissists becomes less powerful over time from the same person. And this is one of the reasons when you stop working as a source of supply for a positive source of supply, they'll switch to devaluing you because then negative supply becomes more powerful for them. This is something I went over with HG Tudor in my first interview with him. And I think he's spot on about that. And it coincides with the devaluing phase. But during this devaluing phase, that's when they're going to be really antagonistic, hostile, put you down, tell you all of the things you're doing wrong, and basically blame you for everything at this point. Everything that's going wrong in the narcissist's life eventually will be your fault. And it's just very frustrating to be around. But also, they will throw in some intermittent rewards as well. It's not just black and white, love bomb to all devalue. No, don't get it twisted. They'll still throw in a little bit of love bombing, a little bit of approval and validation. And that's the thing. When they've gone to mostly devalue, all it takes is just a little bit of approval and a little bit of acceptance, and it feels that much better. And it kind of reminds me of when Viktor Frankl was writing Man's Search for Meaning, and he was in Auschwitz concentration camp. And he mentioned this very phenomenon. He had said, amongst the Nazi guards, for example, even the smallest act of kindness from a Nazi guard had a really powerful effect because they were so brutal. And that's part of being in a trauma bond. All it takes is a little bit of kindness, and it goes a far way. And part of this is human nature as well. When someone is difficult to please, it makes their approval that much more powerful to the other person. And again, there are certain kinds of people that they are conditioned to be this way anyway. Just making sure the microphone's on here well. But people who had a narcissistic parent, for example, they were difficult to please, and they make people earn their love, affection, and approval. And I use the word love in parentheses there because it's hard to say what they're doing is love. But when a kid is growing up in that environment where they're constantly being belittled and criticized and put down and insulted, or everyone's finding all the things they're doing wrong and just getting criticized all the time, when that person does give some love, when that narcissistic parent does give some approval, it feels that much better. And it's like a really big payoff and reward. So when a child has grown up in that dynamic and then they're adult, and then as time goes on, they see this narcissistic person, they're acting in a very similar way that their narcissistic parent acted in. And then the kid thinks, oh, this is very familiar to me. This is what I'm used to. This is what love is supposed to look like. This is what love is supposed to feel like. And honestly, there's a lot of people that can relate to that. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's healthy, but there are certainly a lot of people that can relate to that. And it's why I always say if home wasn't a safe place for you, you got to be very careful with people who feel like home in adulthood. So when they're used to that intermittent rewards, they're used to someone being more hard on them than not. When a narcissistic romantic partner comes into their life, it's like it fits right in. And again, even people that didn't have a narcissistic parent, I think there's a bit of human nature in here too, where when someone's difficult to please and someone's constantly hard on you, when that person gives you some approval and gives you a that a boy, it just feels better. It's more powerful and it's more effective when someone like that does that. But when someone is always giving their love and their love is very easy to come by, well, unfortunately, a lot of people don't appreciate that nearly as much. They appreciate what they have to earn. They appreciate what they have to really work hard for. And again, the narcissist or other abusive people, they take this to the extreme because they're being abusive. They are putting people through a trauma bond and using coercive control and using intermittent rewards. And are they doing this consciously all the time? I don't even think they're doing it consciously. I think this is just what they do. They know that they like putting people down. They're not really conscious of the fact that it's going to be intermittent rewards a lot of times. But I bet you there are some who are aware. I just don't think they all are. I think they all are aware when they're mistreating people, but they don't know the bigger reason behind it, is what my speculation is. They know that, yeah, when they're gaslighting you, when they're putting you down, belittling you, telling you you're always wrong, always guilty of something, they absolutely know they're doing that. But do they know about the ultimate purpose of it? Of, oh, this is going to create an effect of intermittent rewards, and this person is going to become addicted to me, and it's going to be a trauma bond. No, I don't think they all know that. I think some might, but I don't think they all do. But in reality, it doesn't really matter anyway for you. All that matters is, do you see this pattern? Do you see it? And then what are you going to do about it when you see it? That's what matters more of than if they're being intentional with it or not. And I guess the only exception to this is for some people, when they know the narcissist knows, it makes it easier for them to do the right things. Because there are some people, and the same thing with the genetic component, right? They'll say, oh, if it was trauma based and they were only acting that way because of trauma, then I felt bad for them. And I felt like, oh, I don't want to abandon them the way everyone else did. I want to stand by them. I want to try to really help them. But then when they realize, well, there's a big genetic component going on, and sure, trauma from childhood can make it worse, but that genetic component needs to be there first, 9 times out of 10. So that helps people to really see through the charade and say, okay, I got to do what's best for me. But in that intermittent reward period, it's just like a drug addiction. And the most similar is gambling. Gambling is a process addiction. And the pattern of intermittent rewards, punishments, etc., while it's not predictable, that's why it's more like gambling, because when rewards are not predictable, that's when they're the most addicting. And that's exactly what happens in gambling, where you don't know when you're going to get a payout. And that's a very addictive process. It's a process addiction. And a trauma bond is very similar to a process addiction, where people, it's almost as strong as a heroin addiction for that matter. And in fact, if someone hasn't done it, it's going to feel just as powerful as a heroin addiction, where people leave the toxic person, the narcissistic person, and then they go into withdrawal. They'll go into withdrawal and they'll rather be uncomfortable with that person than be lonely and in withdrawal without them. And that's the trauma bond. And I was talking to a person today in a coaching consultation, and what they were really worried about is the love bombing Hoover. So they know what they got to do, but they're still with this person right now. They still live together, not sleeping together, but they're still with each other. And it doesn't hit home a lot of times if you're still with them. It's not until you leave their presence does it really come full force, and do you really sense, okay, I'm not with them anymore. And then the withdrawal can come, because even if you're just still with them living in the same house, they can still be doing something for you. Like, you can try to emotionally cut them off. You might be not be sleeping with them, but just the fact that they're right there, that still might be doing something. And it's not until you leave, then you'll feel the full effects. And at that point, what you gotta do, unless there's some other extenuating circumstance that says you can't, which is what, co-parenting or sharing assets or something, right? Where if you can, you slam that door shut. You don't leave it ajar. You don't think, well, if they can only do this differently, if they can only do that differently, if they can just stop drinking, if they can just stop using drugs, if they could just stop abusing me, or if they will just go to therapy. These are all the things that I've heard people say. But those are all what I would call reservations. And in a 12-step program, they tell people you have to watch out for those reservations, because those reservations will make you pick up again down the line. And in a trauma bond scenario, what is picking up? Picking up is going back to the abusive partner. So you have to slam the door shut on those reservations. And what I always say to people is, if you have to wish they would be how they used to be, or you have to wish they would be someone different, and you're not happy with who they are in the present, that's a problem. Because 99 times out of 100, if you're not happy with who they are in the present, that is not going to change. And they can't change because of you. They would have to want to change for them. And that's what just doesn't happen. So in that case, when you're not happy with who they are in the present, you got to just keep it moving. And you got to act as if, nope, this is not going to change. They are going to be this way. And then I have to act accordingly. And the biggest struggle for people is they have a hard time accepting that. They don't want to accept that, yeah, this person needs to be put in the narcissist penalty box. I got to treat them as if they're a narcissist, and I have to do the steps, the things that we learn about. And a lot of people, they know about trauma bonds. They know about narcissistic abuse. They know about coercive control. They know about narcissistic manipulation tactics, but they just don't want to have to put them in that box. Because it's easy to say this when we're not the ones emotionally impacted. But if we're the ones in the trauma bond and we're emotionally impacted by it, then it's the hardest for any of us to take our own advice. And this is why this can happen even to professionals as well. They know all about this, but when they're in the trauma bond themselves, then it's the most difficult for them to take their own advice. And I think that's true for a lot of people, right? When we're objective, we're a third-party observer, it's so much easier to know what the right thing to do in that case is. And that's one of the reasons why consultations and therapy can be so effective, because we are emotionally disengaged from the situation. We can give a completely objective third-party observer interpretation of what's going on. And when someone's knee-deep in a trauma bond, that's exactly what they need. They need a completely objective view. Okay, this is what I'm seeing here. What do you think? What do you think would be the best thing for you to do here? And again, I always acknowledge it's going to be much easier said than done to do the right thing. But what helps is having our actions lead. So when we do the actions, then our mindset and our heart and our soul can keep up. But when we do the actions, then I think that's when we're most likely to get into a good place. But if we're just thinking about it and we're not acting on it, that's not quite as good. But what I mean by acting on it is, well, you get out of the situation, and unless you can't for some reason because of co-parenting, block them on everything and shut that door. No reservations at all. Because when you do try to leave, even when that narcissistic person is belittling you all the time, putting you down, telling you you're at fault for everything, you're the worst, everything going wrong in their life is your fault, even that is still doing something for them. They might belittle you and treat you terribly, But even that is doing something for them. They are still getting negative supply from doing that. So that when you leave, you might think, well, they were belittling me so much, they were putting me down so much, they'll just let me go. And briefly, they might just let you go. We're shaking there, Angela. We're talking about what I was going over today. And the same thing you had mentioned about the narcissistic parents, too. But you would think, oh, yeah, they'll let you go. But give it a few days, give it a week or two, then that narcissist is going to be upset they lost control of you. And then they're going to try to do what I would call a love bombing Hoover. And this is when they might say all of the things you always wanted to hear. Or they might even say they're sorry about some things. They'll promise to change. They'll promise to treat you better. And they'll tell you everything you wanted to hear. Because why? They really are just upset they lost control. And you better believe if you go back, they're going to start treating you the same way they were treating you before, except worse. Because what happens is the narcissist gets mad that they even had to be nice to you to begin with. And they get resentful that they had to be nice. And so then they decide to punish you for it later. And this is confusing for people because they think, well, the narcissist was treating me so poorly. They were belittling me, insulting me, putting me down, calling me names, or worse. Why wouldn't they just let me go? And it's because even the negative supply is doing something for them. It's all about them. They don't care what it's doing for you. It's all about them and their selfishness and their need for supply. And again, they'll get supply from positive ways or negative ways. And when someone's been with a narcissist for a while, it's mostly going to be from the negative ways. But it still is supply. It is still controlling you. So that when you leave and you're out from underneath their control, then they're going to feel it. And they're going to feel that absence. And they're going to be like, oh, I want to get this back under control. I want to have this person here as a backup. Doesn't mean I love them. It doesn't mean I even like them. I just liked what they did for me. I liked maybe having them as an emotional punching bag, or in some cases, worse than an emotional punching bag. And they're going to try to chase after that. But back to the original point of this all here, this is how they condition you to be grateful for the bare minimum. When someone's so unpleasant all the time and bitter and hostile and antagonistic, all it takes is the smallest bit of validation and approval, and that feels powerful. And it's so refreshing in comparison to that normal ick. Now, granted, hopefully we get to a point down the line where once someone is that normal ick and they're hard to please and they're just obnoxious and antagonistic, we don't want anything to do with them anyway. So their approval and acceptance won't be that powerful anymore. But again, human nature, it can be that way sometimes because not every narcissist is a full-blower where they're just horrific all the time. There's also less severe to moderate versions where they're just annoying, where maybe they have a strong personality. Yeah, they're going to twist and distort. They're going to be antagonistic. They're going to be hard to deal with, but they're not going to be as severe as the other versions. George, what's shaking? Angela says, narcissists pretend to be nice to get what they want. Oh, 1,000%. How are you today, George? And so they'll pretend to be nice, but it's really just to get what they want. And especially, this is, you're most at risk for this if you try to break free. If they lose control of you, then they'll do the old love bombing Hoover. A Hoover, for those who don't know, that's named after the Hoover vacuum cleaner. That's when they try to suck you back in to get you back under control. And they'll do that, and the love bombing period will be shorter than ever, and then you'll go to the devaluing period quicker than ever, and it will be more intense. And then they still might discard you down the line anyway. That's the other thing too. It's all on their terms. It's whatever they want. They don't really care about what you want. They're only doing these love bombing Hoovers because they want what they want. And what they want is control over the situation. And this is especially true if they feel like you got the better of them in the breakup. And what does that look like? Well, that looks like you leaving when they didn't want you to leave. That means you got the better of them. because you had more control in the situation and you left. Notice the narcissist will be completely fine if they break up with you. Though then they won't care at all anymore and they'll do whatever they want. But if you were to break up with them and they don't want you to break up, then you'll see all hell will break loose at that point. Because why? Because they lost control. They lost control, and that's unacceptable to them. And now you have more power in the situation because you exercised your will and got the heck out of there, as you should. And that leaves the narcissist feeling in a low position. Oh no, I lost control. This person got the better of me. And in those cases, they will love bomb Hoover and Hoover and Hoover and Hoover for years sometimes to correct that wrong in their mind. And I have seen that. Doesn't mean it's consistent, but they'll keep on trying and they'll keep on trying, and they can be relentless because they do not like losing control. Also to note, this is what I might start doing as well. I might start making a longer form video, not a short. So an example would be this topic here. Oh, how narcissists condition you to be grateful for the bare minimum. Do like a 10 to 15 minute video and then do a longer live video about that video and give people an opportunity to ask questions or send super chats and things like that. Super chats always help as well. Angela says, when you see the real version of the narcissist, you stop wanting their love and approval. Why would you want the love of a fake loser? Ideally, that would be the case, Angela, but when people are in a trauma bond, they are confused and they don't know up from down anymore. And that person is just everything to them, even though they shouldn't be. It's the drug. It's like a drug in that case. Ideally, I try to get people to that place where they see it that way. Yes. Why would I ever want somebody that's going to disrespect me, mistreat me, abuse me, not care about what I think or feel? Yes. And I'm here to say it's definitely possible to get to that place because that's where I am now. It can take a while and it takes practicing radical self-respect to get there, but it's definitely possible. But there's also variables, right? Everyone has a different starting point. For some people, maybe there's addiction stuff going on with the victim. Maybe there's mental health stuff going on with the victim. Maybe there's other poor health going on. Or maybe there's a lack of community. It just depends. Or a lack of self-esteem. A lot of it depends. And then when people are doing good, though, then they're the least likely to tolerate any of that BS because they know they deserve better. And it takes people a while to get to that place sometimes, but that's the goal. And I think it's very possible to get there. It might take some people investing in themselves to get there. You might have to go to therapy to get there. You might have to go to EMDR to get there, or EFT, or seeing a coach/wizard like me. It's possible. Road says, trauma bonds are a bitch. That sounds like a good t-shirt, doesn't it? That reminds me of my friend had a good t-shirt of, she's a woman, and she said, it's not jealousy, it's you better fucking not. I thought that was funny. Shayna says, can you talk about silent treatment and no contact? Sure. We can talk about silent treatment and no contact, but let me put a bow real quick on what I was talking about before. So they condition you to accept the bare minimum and be grateful for the bare minimum because you appreciate what is less freely given. So if you're mostly in the dark, then you're really going to come to appreciate that light. And good treatment from a narcissist is like the light when you're living mostly in the dark. So part of it is a human nature thing. Part of it's the trauma bond thing. Part of it's the intermittent rewards thing. But that's how it happens. But what you have to do is take a step back and say, why am I dealing with this? Why are my actions congruent with someone that thinks they don't deserve better? Because when push comes to shove, we always say people's actions speak loudest of all. Well, that's true for us too. It's true for us too. People don't like hearing that part of it because it can be too similar to victim blaming for them. But our actions communicate what's important for us too. So if we're sticking it out in bad situations, well, what are we doing? We have to make sure our actions are congruent too. And again, it doesn't mean how we were treated is our fault. It doesn't mean that we deserve to be treated that way. But once we see it, we have to act accordingly and we have to do the best we can. And so once we see, well, my actions are not congruent with someone that has a great belief in themselves and loves themselves, because you can't be with an abusive partner and truly love yourself. You can't be with an abusive partner and have a good belief in yourself. Those two things are not congruent. You can't be with an abusive partner and practice radical self-respect. They force you into situations where it's one or the other, one or the other. That's why, to me, practicing radical self-respect, learning to love ourselves and believe in ourselves, that's the way out. And so I tell people this, and I bet you my consultations with people, they can probably sound blunt sometimes. I was thinking about that today, and it was a shorter session, but it was like, I get it. But especially when you're pressed for time, you got to make sure the points hit home. And so, ideally you would see someone consistently and you can be a little more gradual about it. But if you don't know if you're ever going to talk to them again, you got to give them the truth. Not like in a mean way, but sometimes just the truth can sound harsh, right? And I don't try to be brutal about it. I just try to be honest. And that's what people need sometimes, to say, you know what? Are my actions congruent with what I want? Are my actions congruent with someone that really wants to heal this trauma bond? And if they're not, why aren't they? And then what do I have to do to make my actions congruent? That's the bottom line. And again, that's where a consultation with me could come into play. That's where going to a therapist or counselor that understands narcissism, EMDR, EFT, whatever it takes. So the silent treatment, I guess that's a good bow for that there. So the silent treatment and no contact. The silent treatment is used to punish, manipulate, or control. And what I see happens to a lot of people is narcissists will try to say, I'm going no contact with you. But really what they have done is a silent treatment. Or another example of this is someone cuts off someone and then they get mad that that person didn't try to reach out to them. It's like, if you cut that person off, that's where you should leave it. Because if you cut them off with the intention of manipulating them into an action, that is not a boundary anymore. That's manipulation. That's a silent treatment at that point. And the reason I'm saying this is because I've seen people say this on Reddit. I saw this on a TikTok video. They were like, oh no, I cut someone off and then I got really mad because they didn't chase me. It's like, well, you're just manipulating them. That's a silent treatment. What are you doing? Like, that's all that was at that time, right? A silent treatment is used to get a result. It is used to get someone else to do something or to punish them or to hurt them. No contact, on the other hand, and some people have fought me about this. They said it's a wall. I said, no, it's a boundary. No contact is our boundary for ourselves. And once we go no contact, it's not to manipulate that other person. It's not to control that other person. It's not to try to get them to think a certain way or feel a certain way. It is simply for us. That is it. And we go no contact because someone else refuses to respect our boundaries. They bulldoze our boundaries and they can't help it but to insult us, belittle us, and put us down. So when they do that, they leave us no choice. They leave us no choice. And so we go no contact. And when we can't go no contact, we go least amount of contact necessary. That is it. So to me, that's the difference between a silent treatment and no contact. They can get twisted because that's what narcissistic people will do. They will twist. They'll do the twist. And they'll try to make it seem like, oh, this is really no contact. But in reality, they're doing a silent treatment. And you'll know it's a silent treatment because they want to get to you. They want a certain reaction out of you, or they want you to do something. When it involves the other person, besides just not wanting to talk to that person, then it's a silent treatment. Danielle Joe says, can you talk about why there's a very sick to stomach feeling when a narcissist is present? Feeling isn't there when they're not around, but their presence is gut wrenching. Well, it sounds like the feeling of having to walk on eggshells. It sounds like the feeling of not being emotionally safe with someone. Sounds like the feeling of, just having a bad gut feeling. And I would say ignore those bad gut feelings at your own risk, because there's probably a reason you have that feeling. And if you really examine that feeling, then you'll be able to think, why do I have this feeling? Why do I get this icky feeling around this person? Is it because they mistreat me? Is it because they're passive aggressive? Is it because they belittle me and put me down? Generally, when you think about it, there's a reason. And that's something to not ignore. If you constantly feel unsafe around someone, there's probably a very good reason for that. And that was one of those aha moments for me. Not quite a post BS epiphany, but just being told, if I consistently feel uncomfortable around someone or unsafe, there's probably a very good reason for that. And that was powerful for me because I was always told, if I'm uncomfortable, it's my fault. I shouldn't be feeling that way, and I should be feeling another way. But to be told, no, if you're uncomfortable or if you have a bad feeling, trust that bad feeling. And there's probably a very good reason for it. That was a very powerful thing for me to hear. So that's what I would say for you, Danielle. Angela says, have you noticed that overt narcissists often marry covert narcissists? In such cases, there is no victim. Yeah, there can definitely be two narcissists in a relationship. And generally, there will be one, they'll have what I call a narcissist competition, a narc-off. And what happens is one person eventually wins the power struggle, and they are the one that's wearing the pants. Sometimes that's the man, sometimes that's the woman. But usually what determines that is who has the strongest sense of their own reality and who has the most power in the situation. And sometimes that's the woman, and other times that's the man. But then, and granted, they can both still be narcissists, and they can both mistreat people, but one's probably just getting a little bit better of the other. And I think we see this in the space here too. We see this amongst the narcissistic abuse creators space, where I bet you, in fact, I don't just bet you, I know there are people here that have just been out narked. They got defeated by a worse narcissist, and now here they are. And I'll give you some clues on how to find them. To me, if they're still wallowing in the victim card years down the line after they've been here, that's a good clue. Why is it a good clue? Because narcissists love to play the victim. And granted, more than one thing can be true at the same time. Someone can be a victim and play the victim at the same time. You play the victim when you weaponize your victimhood to get what you want or to manipulate others. And some of these creators here who've been here for years, they still really emphasize that victim card. And I don't like that. I think as a creator, like once you've in a good spot, there's no reason for you to be playing that victim card anymore. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be in a better spot now. Like, how are you supposed to be helping people if you're not in a better spot yourself? That's just how I see it. George says, they go silent to pout and punish. That is exactly right. And that's how you know, right? To pout or punish. The punishment part, and even the pouting part, is playing the victim, right? They want you to come over and say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you upset. I didn't mean to make you depressed or get you to pout. There. And it's like a parent having to coddle a 4-year-old. Oh, there. It's okay. I'm sorry I had a boundary. I'm sorry I told you no. I'm sorry I was assertive. I'm sorry I didn't give you your way. And that's what they're doing. It's childish, But that's a good way to see it, right? You see it as it's the 4-year-old that wants their parent to come over and say, there, it's okay. You're the best anyway. Even though that you're being pouty, you're still the best. And I think even that's how Dr. Mark Ettinson has explained it too. It's like they're a 3-year-old, and when they're seeking love and admiration, that's basically what they're doing. So they'll say something cringe, where they'll have an accomplishment, and then they'll shout their accomplishment from the rooftops. And what they're doing is, it's like they're a 3-year-old wanting their parent to validate their accomplishment. See, look what I did. I did this. Isn't it great? And I'm sure if you think about this in the media world and the political world, there are people that fit this mold, right? The people that are like, can you look at this great thing I did? Can you tell me how awesome I am? Can you tell me how amazing this accomplishment was? And it's literally like they're 3 years old. And the crazy making part about it is so many people just don't see it. They're maybe willfully blind, or they have agreement blindness, as I would call it. Agreement blindness is when someone agrees with someone else, and then when they agree, they become blind to that person's manipulation tactics. Hamster Love says, I set a few boundaries in my marriage. I wouldn't quit my job, wouldn't move away, and wouldn't agree with mother-in-law disciplining our kids, but mostly agreed with everything he wanted in 14 years of marriage. Yeah, I mean, that's how it's most likely to go smoothly, by you just agreeing. Like when you agree with them and you don't often tell them no or put your foot down, yeah, it can go. But the second you put your foot down, or the second you tell them no, then there's going to be a problem. Angela says, what do you do when you are sure that a narcissist stole from you and you know that you can't expect accountability? Consequences. And then part of the consequences would be, I mean, do you really need the money back? Because outside of some sort of criminal charge, I don't know if you'll get it back. I don't know how important the amount is to you, right? Because if it's less, I think of the lesson from A Bronx Tale. The dude gave someone $20. The dude never paid him back $20. And then Sonny, I think his name was, said to the kid, because the kid was getting all mad, that bastard owes me $20. Blah, blah, blah. And then the mob boss comes over and says, hey, like, what the hell's wrong with you? He goes, oh, what's going on? I go, oh, that kid owes me $20. That bastard, he didn't pay me back my $20. And he's like, dude, what the hell's wrong with you, kid? You just paid $20 to never see that bastard again. Money well spent. So that's the thing I would say to you, Angela, is how much is it? Is it an amount that you really need? Or is it an amount that you could say good riddance to? If it's an amount that you really need, then, I'd maybe, you have to be gentle. You'd have to be gentle if you really want the money. If not, you would have to go the criminal route. And if you go the criminal route, they'll probably go kicking and screaming. They're not going to make it easy for you. But there's a way to maybe try to butter them up to get the money. But again, that's a tough situation. He said, I was pushing him around. Just with the few boundaries you had was pushing him around. Yeah, I could see him saying that, or her saying that. Danielle says, no need to touch on this, but thanks for input. It's so true. Unfortunately, just being a neighbor comes with uncomfortable atmospheric feelings, which I can only enjoy my yard at certain times. Yeah, I mean, like I said, trust your gut. If you got bad feelings about something, or there's something that doesn't feel right, there's probably a very good reason for that, and don't ignore that feeling. Ignore that feeling at your own peril, is what I would say. Because, I'm very used to those feelings. I've had them in my life a lot, and I have learned to trust them. And I have learned there's probably a very good reason for them. And often for me, the reasons were there was someone that just wasn't respecting my autonomy. There was someone that wasn't respecting my boundaries. And they were very pushy. They were a bully. And everyone was like, go, 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 go. And it's just very stressful. And usually those people are also very controlling. They're the people that I don't really get along with well, the super controlling and pushy people, they just exhaust me. I'm not a fan of them. They can be there's something else. But to me, they're very stressful. There's no peace around them. There's no emotional safety around them. And I cut those people off. Even if I'm not no contact with them, I emotionally cut them off. And that's how I play it. That's how the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect plays it. You might want to play it a little differently. Maybe you truly want to go full no contact. But in some cases, there are people that I've decided not bad enough to go full no contact, but bad enough to emotionally cut off, if that makes sense. So, and that's what I've done. And once you learn how to do that, you can get jiggy with it. And then you can be like, whoop, out you go, out you go. And that's what I do. The first times is always the hardest because in the beginning, when you first start being assertive and having boundaries, you probably feel very guilty. You probably feel very uncomfortable because whenever you did this in the past, it was never acceptable. You always got punished, or you always got criticized, or you always got belittled. And that's what conditioned you probably to be a people pleaser. That's why they say people pleasing is a fawn response. And part of unraveling that and healing from that is learning to say no without that guilty feeling. My friend Adam, who I interviewed a while ago, he calls this disappointment tolerance, which I think is a great word. And he says, you got to be more okay with disappointing other people. And I think that's a great way to put it. The more okay you are disappointing other people, the more true to yourself you are being. So that's something that I think would be good for people to strive for. And that doesn't mean to be a dick to everyone. No, I'm not saying that either. But it's really just to make sure you are honoring yourself. You're not betraying yourself. You're not saying yes when you really want to say no. And those are a good indicator. Oh, what are the situations I'm saying yes in where I wish I was saying no? I should be saying no, but for some reason I'm saying yes. Why is that? Is it because of who it is? Is it because of a certain situation? Is it situation dependent? What is it? It's a good thing to examine because if you do that too much, that's not a good sign. And also, though, if you never say no, your yes becomes less powerful. But when you do know how to say no, all of a sudden, when you say yes, now that's more meaningful. It's more meaningful to say yes when you also know how to say no. Chris Williamson was talking about that when he was interviewing Nick Pollard, the people displeaser. The people displeaser, Nick Pollard, he was on this channel probably a little over a year ago now. So I've got a few people I've overlapped with Chris Williamson. 3, actually. Dr. Robert Glover, author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. Nick Pollard, the people displeaser. And the Tin Man. The Tin Man is a guy who really, he's an advocate for men's issues. And he's not some sort of red pill hooligan or black pill hooligan. I wouldn't consider him like misogynistic or anything like that. He's just truly trying to stick up for men. So those are the 3 people that I have interviewed that Chris Williamson has also interviewed. So you got some overlap there. George says, Psalm 37 verse 21 states, the wicked borrows but does not pay back, but the righteous is generous and gives. Yeah, that's good. That's a good verse. I like that one. That reminds me of the verse that someone put on one of my Dr. Salerno interviews, that even from the womb, the wicked go wayward, which is basically an argument for the genetic component of narcissism. It's all about, and that's giving with strings attached too, right? Well, it's like the vice versa of that, I should say. So narcissists will give, but when they give, they want something in return. It's like tit for tat. Oh, I do this, then you better do this. And there's that expectation. But to give with no strings attached, to give with the expectation of nothing in return, that's truly the only way to give. If you're giving with that expectation, you are setting yourself up for resentment. That is a premeditated resentment in that case. Angela says, maybe it's silly, but Alex, what's shaking? Maybe it's silly, but my narcissistic mother stole my pair of scissors and destroyed it, and she gaslit me even with evidence. Narcissists are very invasive. That's the message. Yes, narcissists don't like to respect privacy. They don't like to respect privacy. They don't like to respect boundaries. They don't like to respect autonomy. They'll like to say things like, this is my house. I don't believe in locked doors. I can do what I want. I paid for this. And granted, and sometimes it's difficult to push back on it sometimes. But it's a bad message to be sending to a kid. Narcissists are always, George says, narcissists are always asking to borrow money with no intention of paying it back, in my experience anyway. That certainly happens. And I've experienced that as a coach as well, where I've tried to give people the benefit of the doubt and not take payment before the service. And there's been a few times where I've just never gotten that money. Like I gave them that option and then they bit me for it. And so it was a valuable lesson where I think now, well, I've had to start taking payments before a lot of times. Because if you don't, like that way, if you take payment before, you'll never get clowned. If you take payment after, there's always a risk you can get clowned. And I'm trying to think of my career. There's probably 4 times I can think of. There's 4 times I've been clowned. One time it was on me, like I wasn't explicit enough that it was a paid call. And that's, that was a gray area. It was there. But I took the blame because I didn't specifically say, yes, this is a call. This is a paid service. I take Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. Which will you be paying with? I didn't do that, so that was on me. Even though it shouldn't have been perhaps, but it was on me. So yeah, I could see them doing that. Because what is that though, George? It's stealing. That's what that is. It's stealing. Let's not sugarcoat it. Borrowing without paying back is stealing. Stealing perhaps with mildly your consent, but you still expected the money back, so that's not really consent. Like, no, you gave them the money. So my rule now for letting people borrow money is, for the very most part, I don't let people borrow money unless I'm comfortable with them, unless I'm comfortable never getting that money back. Because when it comes to people, that can happen a lot. And it can get in the way of friendships. It can get in the way of family relationships. It's just not a good dynamic. It's a messy dynamic. And it's one of the reasons why they say don't get into business with friends, don't get into business with family, because it can complicate things. It can make things messy. You're better off getting with a business partner that isn't really a friend. It's one thing if they become kind of a friend, but a friend going in, hoorah, Phil Bradley. I wouldn't recommend it. The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect would not recommend family business or friendship business, and especially not spouse business. No, that's setting yourself up. You're tangling too many things. But people do the spouse one too because, it's romantic. Let's start this candlelit dinner restaurant together. It's part of our romantic dream. And so I can understand it. But unfortunately, over 50% of marriages are ending. So to ignore that, I think, is a little bit careless. Because people change. I mean, feelings change and people change. Narcissists teach you to watch your back. Oscar Wilde says, a true friend will stab you in the front. But those sneaky haters that are betraying, you got to watch out for them. They're the ones that will stab you in the back. Those are the ones that will betray. And that's the biggest thing about a betrayer. They were someone that was on your team, that you trusted. because only someone that you once trusted can betray, or else it wouldn't be a betrayal. It would just be someone screwing you over that you didn't know. Yeah, so the real ones, you'll know where you stand with them. I prefer those people. The people that you know where you stand with them. They're not going to clown you over, or you're just going to know if they're unhappy with you. You're going to know it. If you're happy with you, if they're happy with you, you're going to know that too. If there's something that you wished they were doing, you're going to know. Yes, the covert narcissist will absolutely do that. They're very, and even I've been around more coverts than I have been overts. And the coverts, it makes the people who are at least direct, it makes them very, what's the word? It's just refreshing. It's refreshing to be around someone who's direct when you're used to the people that are covert. Because the coverts are what? Lots of subtle manipulation, guilt trips, passive aggressive, talking behind each other's back, some gossiping. It's just slippery and slick. Where the people who are direct, sometimes the grandiose narcissist can be direct. And in a way, to me, that's obnoxious in its own way. But when you're used to the covert variety, it might still seem better. It might still seem refreshing to that covert version. The covert version is ick. And that's the thing. The part that really annoys me about it is like when you know how someone is behind closed doors and then you see how they act in public so differently, that's obnoxious. Because they put on this mask, this friendly mask, this all for the image. And then that's not really how they are. But they try to get people fooled. There was a book from Christine Ann Lawson, Understanding the Borderline Mother. There was a woman who wrote the book Mommy Dearest. I can't remember her name, and I can't remember her mother's name. But that's what she'd be really upset about. Her mom had borderline, they said, maybe comorbid with something else. But she was fake as can be. She was fake as can be when she did these dinner parties, and the daughter would just be driven insane. Like, she's a fake. She's a fraud. Can't you see it? Because behind closed doors, she would be a terror. She'd be a nightmare. But in front of the guests, the image was everything. Joan Crawford, that's the one. +1 for Alex. And her daughter was who? That's actually that. And then +1 for George. Christina Crawford. Yeah. What a good, smart chat I have. So when you listen to that, I would recommend everyone listen to that, honestly. Christine Ann Lawson's Understanding the Borderline Mother. So Christine wrote the book, Mommy Dearest, about her mom, Joan. And Joan was a nightmare. Joan was someone that anything she found out her daughter really loved, she would try to destroy. And then she was super jealous of her daughter's career. It was it's the stuff that fairy tale villains are made out of. Yeah. I mean, it's a thing. People don't realize it's a thing, but it's a thing. Those kinds of people exist. So, and your father fooled everyone, huh? Yeah, it's obnoxious, right? It's like the kids and the spouse, they're the ones that see it. They see the mask. They see the nonsense. It's everyone else that doesn't seem to see because they're on their best behavior with the other people. But occasionally they can still slip up. And I've seen that happen too. I've seen them occasionally slip up. Maybe if they're under the influence, or they'll make some sort of passing, belittling remark or something. Danielle says, I've never seen that movie, Alex, either. I've been told I should watch it. I just haven't seen it. Danielle says, my mom did that too. Everything I gave her, she destroyed it. Yeah, it's awful. That's just cruelty. That's sadistic cruelty is what that is. And by the way, the people that are here, did you hear my suggestion about making a 10 to 15 minute long video and then having a live stream about the same topic and do that for each one? So the example with this one would be how narcissists condition people to be grateful for the bare minimum. Do like a 10 to 15 minute video about it, which is just me straight spitting the topic and then doing a live stream like this afterwards. Yeah, so George thinks it's a good idea. I'm just throwing it out there. It might be something that way I'm doing both, right? Where I do that. And I also might clip, because when I'm doing a video like that, it'll probably be more concise. It'll be more clear and concise probably because it's shorter. I could also clip up some of these live streams. There's hours of footage here to do that. They don't get clipped as well into shorts. It doesn't fit right on the screen sometimes. It actually fits better on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, surprisingly. Like I'm doing them for YouTube, and then the shorts it doesn't fit well. Alex says, I can't watch it now. I'd be too triggered. I'm healing. Yeah, you got to know yourself. And if you think it'd be too triggering, then I wouldn't do it. So that's what I'm thinking. What other topics would you guys like to hear about? I know one of the next ones I'm going to do is the narcissistic family cult. But before I do a longer video on that, there's more shorter ones to be done. Or maybe I should do the longer one first and then do the shorter ones after. I'm not sure. You would cater to a wider audience with 2 videos. Yeah, I would agree with that. Because somehow I got to find a way to get either these lives or the longer form videos to pop off into the thousands of views instead of the hundreds. I can do thousands in the shorts, but that's not quite the same. Curious one. Let's shake it. Hi, everybody. Interesting topic as usual. To the person who commented on the behavior of dad who fooled everyone, I hear that. Hugs. There you go. It's a common experience. Common experience, the two-faced narcissistic parent. Especially for the people that live with that parent. It's very obnoxious. Very icky. It makes you wonder, right? Doesn't it make you wonder what's it like to be in a normal family? I wonder what it was like in a normal family growing up where they weren't that way. It's hard for me to even imagine it because my whole life has been shaped by it. Need more about how to stand in your power with a narc. How to handle them when you have to be around with how to disarm them. Well, that's also a good question, Danielle. What is normal indeed? Rooted in Motion Homestead. Welcome to you, sir or miss. How to stand in your power? Ideally, you would first get some space from them, if that's at all possible. And depending on who they are to you, is it family? Is it a romantic partner? Is it someone in the workplace? Like, what is it? But ideally, you would first get some space. You work on yourself. That space is needed, I think. The space really helps because there's something about their presence that can keep people stuck. And it's just like an anchor. But when you can get away for a little while, then you kind of recuperate and you can start to heal. Well, if you've seen this channel at all, you should have seen some of the shorts where I did talk about just that. The 6 ways to handle a narcissist when you can't go no contact. So the first was least amount of contact necessary. Then was remembering to not jade, justify, argue, defend, or explain. Then it was gray rock. That's when you're calm, boring, and you don't give any emotional reactions, and you keep things to logistics only. You don't share anything more than what is necessary. If that's a problem, then you can do yellow rock. That's like a little bit more emotion than gray rock. Then there's biff, brief, informative, friendly, and firm. It's kind of like how you would talk to a checkout person in line, maybe a server in a restaurant. Ah, okay. And then the other parts of it though is the emotional 4-year-old. You see them as an emotional 4-year-old and or a malfunctioning robot. And those are the ways. But, I can do longer videos about that too. Alex says, once I went no contact, my healing took off and I regained memories. Yeah, that can certainly happen. Global says parents had expectations as well as the child. Neither one is satisfied. Everyone in family has their plans changed through time. Yes, I would say so. So, rooted in motion homestead, why don't you, if you feel comfortable, tell some about your family in X there, because sometimes the specifics would change what I would say. But other ways to stand in your power, I mean, it starts with it's an inside job. So I'm very big into affirmations. I write things down every day. I'm big into sleep, diet, and exercise. Like it's very important for me to have a good night's sleep because it's like my battery. If I don't have a full night's sleep, my battery is not on full power. The same with like diet, and I don't like drink because drinking kind of depletes my power. Very little high fructose corn syrup, very little like very processed food. I think all of that weakens me too. Global says most complain the reality of life was not explained to them. Well, I mean, life's changing so fast now that how can anyone explain it? How can parents truly prepare their kids for this world with the rate of change that there is? It's going to be very difficult. Curious One says, narcissists are like a scary amusement park ride with lots of mirrors that make your face long, your body short, and others tell you that you don't look like that. That's a good way to put it. It's like the funhouse mirrors of horror. Rooted in Emotion says, I have taken my distance, but it keeps me from being around my kids and grandkids. I won't go to holiday gatherings if he is there. I need to be able to stand in it in some room. Mm. So maybe then that's where exposure therapy could help you, perhaps, because that's the one disadvantage of no contact, where, yeah, contact, but you don't really become gaslighting proof by being no contact. And what I mean by that is to become gaslighting proof is when you're around that person and they can't hurt you at all anymore because there's nothing they can say. There's nothing they can say that would get under your skin. And again, there's an argument for you shouldn't even do that anyway, right? There's why even try to do that? What's the point? Well, the point is what Rooted is saying here is that if you want to see the rest of your family and you've been no contact, well, now you have some choices to make. And the choices would be if you want to see your kids, maybe you got to find a way to stand in your power around that person and to not let them bother you and to not let them get under your skin. So it's like one of those things where some exposure to it could actually disempower them to an extent. Global says, my sadness is not sharing my hopes and dreams to other family members. Yeah, I could see that. Thank you, Curious One. The courage to be disliked. That's one of my favorite expressions. How did you know? I think Bruce Lee said that too. But that's what it is. What's the courage to be disliked? It's owning who you are, being who you are, owning your likes and dislikes, owning your boundaries, owning even your political thoughts, and just like rolling with it. And then whatever happens is whatever happens. And there's people out there that do it. I'm even more careful with some of that because as a creator, like if I were to make too much of a stand, You're going to make a lot of people mad. But you know there's people in your life that they don't have that hesitancy. They just roll. And maybe they just do that in their personal lives. I'm not sure how they do in their business lives with it, but in their personal lives, they have no reservations, no holds barred. They just go. Rooted says, yes, I'm not gaslighting proof around him. I have no trouble standing up to him, but I should need to. He does that poking undercover. Yes. I totally get it. That's where the gaslighting proof comes into play. There's a video I made a while back about ultimate victory over the narcissist. Ultimate victory is when there is literally nothing they could say or do that would upset you. At that point, they are completely disempowered. And that's what they would hate most of all. When they can't provoke you into any reactions and they can't get any supply from you. When you get to that point, you have won. And now that's total freedom too, because that's the other thing, right? When you go no contact with someone, they do still have a little power in a way that you're going to avoid them. You're going to not be around them. So that does influence your life a little bit. And sometimes it's for the best though anyway, but true freedom, ultimate freedom is no, they are completely disempowered. Global says, best part is making the decisions. Right, wrong, they were my choice at the time. Yeah, I like that. We have a good flock of black sheep here, curious one. Very good flock. Hopefully, or not hopefully, we are being led in a good direction. Rooted says, I stand my ground, my power, and don't care who likes me, even if my kids don't like me. But if I can be in my kid's life and disarm him without words, I'd rather do so. So not words, you mean like just not being bothered? Is that what you mean? So like he can say what he wants and then have it not be a problem for you? Yeah, that'd be a good one for you to watch too. But yeah, because not everything requires words. Some things might be like a sentence, but I would definitely refrain from being sucked into emotional engagements. You can say one thing, but I wouldn't recommend getting sucked in. George says, the truth kills, and so does indifference. That's right. Indifference is the way. Indifference is the thing they hate most of all. Because when you're indifferent, now they have no power over you and no control over you. And part of control even is control over your emotional state. It's not even physical control. Control over your physical state, or excuse me, your emotional state. That's why they feed off of both positive and negative reactions, because it's control. It's control over your emotional state. Rooted in emotion homestead. This guy has in the last abused me in every single way you can think of. Yes, me not be bothered, and he not get any feet. Yes. Yes. Getting to the point of indifference. That's what you want to be. And so the next step with it for you would be, and this might be something that you might want to schedule a consultation to do as well, but I'll say this right now. You think about the things that have like upset you the most. And you think about them and you say, okay, why does this really bother me? Is there something that I really need to get to the bottom of here? Is there something that I need to accept? Is there something that I should be changing? Or do I care about what this person thinks? What is it? So he says, my goal was to stay away from him to break his control over me. But same since he still has control because I'm not around my kids when he is around. Yes, that is still a little control for him. Hello, Cheryl. Cheryl says, I'm still dealing with sexual assaults in East Asia. You'd think men would have got over that in their 20s. What do you mean? You've been SA'd? Well, you don't have to say, but you guys you're in their 30s and they're doing that now? That doesn't sound very good. East Asia, was this like the Philippines? Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, South Korea? What am I missing? Sure, but that's not good. I don't like that's happening to you. It's not very good, and I'm sure you don't like it either. I would say go out with buddies too. I would try to avoid any of those kinds of situations. It's really not that he bothers me like you'd think. It's him still feeling like he is bulking me. Bullying you, you mean? Well, here's the thing. He can feel whatever he wants to feel, but it's a completely different thing if it bothers you or if it what you think about it. I shouldn't say bothered, but what you think about it. Like you can't control what he thinks or feels. And even wanting to do so isn't necessarily the best move. Tape pie. I've never heard. Where is that? But Rooted, here's my email address. If you'd like to do a consultation about that. That does bother me, him trying to bully me, and I have to just stand there and keep the peace. Yeah, so that's part of it. That's part of it. There's many roots of it, right? Curious ones. I hear you, Cheryl. I'm sorry this is affecting you too. I'm a 46-year-old single celibate woman. The harassment never stops. It seems to be a cultural problem that transcends ethnic cultures. That sounds good, Rooted too. Um, what happens to you, curious one? Are you in America? It's not good. I mean, there's plenty of like douchey dudes for sure, and for guys who are doing worse than that, that is more than just douchey. The first time I didn't fight and was put down for 2 weeks. I fought the second time and pulled my right arm. That took 2 weeks to heal. What what kinds of situations are these? Is this like a public thing? Or people that you know? Thank you, Danielle. I don't like my hair. I have to like make sure it's not cockeyed. Alex says, I'm sorry, Cheryl. I had a close friend from Taiwan during undergrad. She was a good person. Yeah, please be safe. And like I said, I don't know what kinds of situations these are happening in, but maybe there's, and you're making it sound like it's happening a lot. So, I don't know if it's a family member, people you know, just people in certain places. I don't know. Because they say most times it is someone you know. Most times it's someone that it's either in the family or a friend. Curious one says, I live in Arizona. Not the first incident, but I ended a friendship of a year with a male friend who forcefully tried to kiss me. I had to beat him in the chest to push him away. Yes, you told me about that actually. Now that I think of it, you got to be prepared to fight with these animals. Yes. I mean, there's two parts of it, right? We can tell women to empower themselves, and it's also true that men shouldn't be doing it too. Like both of those are true. Also got a fun marriage proposal from that first guy that sounded more like a kidnapping proposal. Yes. It's definitely usually someone you know. It makes me concerned because I have a lot of nieces in my family. My little brother's got 3 daughters. It's always like, especially when they start going from like a young teenager into an adult, it's wild to see them grow up. And then you start getting worried about them, like, oh man, like you don't like to having to think of them all of a sudden in the dating world, but that's part of growing up. Just trying to online date turn into underhanded BDSM fetish maneuvers. Yeah. Okay, cool. When this live ends, I'll take a look at that. Um, I would be very careful who you meet via those online apps then, because all those dating apps, or whether it's a fetish app or a kink app, those things are out of control. They're just, it's not very good. Not very good. It might even be CPTSD, complex post traumatic stress disorder. That's when you've been around the stressful or traumatic thing for longer periods of time. PTSD can be a one event. CPTSD, but that's the thing. In America, there is no CPTSD. All they would call it is PTSD. If you say no, unhealthy people take that as a friendly invite to a challenge. They want to prove you wrong and establish dominance. Yes, there are some people like that. That's for sure. It's not good. Yes, that was me. Ruined medical PTSD was the main one. Dating apps are full of disordered individuals. Of course, because it's made cheating so easy now for people. All you have to do is go get a Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, or some other fetish thing on the down low, and you can do whatever you want. And let's face it, there's also plenty of ENM, open relationships, and poly relationships now, too. They're all over. They're more common than ever. Well, we're just in an era of our relationships are wild. I think there's more single people than there's ever been. There's more divorces than there's ever been. It's wild. Bumble. East Asia is still the hood. I believe it. Well, because there's like I have a friend that goes to the Philippines sometimes, and it's a different world. There's still gender roles there. It's a whole different dynamic. There's also it's a much more poor country as well, and that plays a part. So people from America, it's like the people that live in Mexico and work in America, and then they send their money back to Mexico because it goes further. Well, that's what people in America do in the Philippines. They'll go there because their money goes further and they kind of intermerse themselves with the culture. And don't get me wrong, there can definitely be problems with that too. I would hope the Americans treat the natives better than the people you're talking about, though. I would hope. But then again, nothing would surprise me. Nothing would surprise me. Yes, on the what? Nats? What's that mean? Oh, Narc family cult. Yeah, we can definitely do that. I'll make some because there's so many videos to be made. There's narcissistic father, enabler mother, narcissistic mother, enabler father, enabler fathers. There's also a flying monkey, narcissistic mother, golden child son, narcissistic father, golden child daughter, narcissistic father, golden child son. On and on it goes. There's so many combinations. And I think honestly, people they like those the best. They like those family ones. Because on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook even, my dysfunctional families, sweet problems under the rug video, I got 8 million. Don't get what? I know they did that in China, but what do you mean got rid of the female babies? What was I saying? Um, Oh, yes. On TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, that dysfunctional family swept people or sweep problems under the rug. It got millions of views on Instagram, millions of views on TikTok, but on YouTube, not so much. I don't even know if it get freaking 5,000 views on YouTube, and they were all shorts. It goes to show you the algorithms are all different. It's all different depending on where you go. Ellie, what's shaking? We're talking about today the how narcissists condition people to be grateful for the bare minimum. So the reason we talked about that was some of it's a human nature thing too. Curious One says on the topic, it's a big problem when someone holds you to unreasonable high standards, then shift the goalpost constantly, but they won't give a MM of space to collaboratively solve a problem. Yeah, I mean they'll do anything to twist and distort and make it just not. They're not going to give you the approval. Yeah, I mean I'm familiar with that part. Pre-birth ultrasounds. I mean, there's been times in China where the one baby policy, and if your one baby was a daughter, they like leave it on the freaking mountainside. Not good. Yeah, that makes sense. Just woke up. What time is it where you are? It's over. We're in Cinderella hour here. It's 12:03. We've been going for an hour and 21. But part of the human nature is when people are hard to please, it makes that person's approval feel better. And with a narcissistic person and a trauma bond, it's that effect just very severe. Because now, yeah, anyone who is difficult to please, their approval can feel powerful. But this is even more so when you have an intimate relationship with them or it's been a narcissistic parent, then it's just exponentially worse. If they breadcrumb you, just weaponize the sex before leaving. Major Nap 1204. Ground control to Major Tom. Yes, I would say screw. I would say Cheryl, try to find your way to America. I think you'll be treated if it's at all possible. I think it sounds like you'd be treated better here. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not sure what. I mean, the immigration policy right now is all out of control. But it's better perhaps than where you are. Good old Ellie Wynn. So that was the thing about the intermittent rewards where they're just so difficult to please that it makes it feel good when you finally get a little bit of approval. And I used the example of Viktor Frankl, who is a psychologist, and then he was a prisoner in Auschwitz concentration camp. And he had mentioned how when Nazi guards would give him just a little bit of kindness, it felt really powerful because they would normally not do that, of course. So it's just, that's part of the human nature. Curious One says, it's always out of our reach. They might give it to you so they can tighten the wrench later. Trauma bonded? Yeah, that's definitely a thing. And then we go back to what you had said before, because that's something to touch on too. If someone holds you to unreasonably high standards, then shifts the goalpost constantly, but they won't give a millimeter of space to collaboratively solve a problem. Yeah, that's just, what's the term for that? That's just never good enough. That's the term for that. So whatever you do, it's never good enough. And they keep on moving the goalpost, shifting things. And it's very stressful, right? There's a lot of dynamics that are like that. Narcissistic parents can be like that. Narcissistic romantic partners can be like that. And it's just exhausting. Dual citizen. Good. Good. So I'd say definitely try to be in America more than. I don't like hearing that happen to you. It's not good. I think people in the West here in America, they don't talk about the misdeeds of other countries. I think, like in America, you hear about the misdeeds of white men mostly. People are very comfortable talking about that, but they won't talk about others for whatever reason. Because everyone has their biases or who's acceptable to criticize. But overall, like the way some people talk, like I think it just depends. I think a lot of it depends on what their upbringing was like. She said she's a dual citizen, Alex. So I would maybe, it just depends if she has someone to stay with here. Maybe she doesn't. And of course, finances too, right? Finances, that determines so much. Because if you don't have the finances, what are you going to do? Not going to do much is the answer. So what else we have on the agenda here? Cece. I hope you've all, if you haven't already, checked out that first interview with Cece. And we're going to talk about some of this stuff too. So Rooted, some of the things that you were asking me about, I'm going to be talking to Cece about tomorrow. Now, it won't be uploaded tomorrow. It'll probably be uploaded the next day or maybe even Thursday. But we'll be talking about that stuff too. So in addition to perhaps consultations with me, that would also be helpful for you. Because she's got a good vibe. I was saying this the other day too. You can't fake your energy. Your energy or your vibe, you can't fake that. It's the one thing you can't fake. And she's got a good vibe. And she's smart. She's very smart. And she's much younger too. To be as smart as she is, she's like 27. I mean, 27 is considered much younger to me. But we'll be going over that. I got Dr. Salerno the 15th. And I'm looking into other people that you all want to have me try to interview. If there's other people, let me know. And maybe they are involved with addiction. Maybe it's ADHD. Maybe it's autism. Maybe it's other people in the narcissism space. No, I'm 40. CC's 27. So CC seems older-ish only because she's smarter. It's not even that she looks older, but she's very well spoken for someone that's 27. I give her credit for that. She does good with that. Yeah, so, and I reached out to that one person, Dr. Sage. I have not heard back from them though, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see. All right. I'm getting tired here. If anyone has any questions here, they can let me know. I'll be getting back to Rooted in the email there too. And hopefully this stream was pretty informative here. Learned about the intermittent rewards, the human nature of it all, appreciating the light when you've experienced more dark. That's how it rolls. And that's what makes it feel grateful to get that bare minimum when you're so used to the opposite. All it takes is a little bit. Oh no, Curious One says, I'm still skeptical that narcissism is genetic, but I appreciate the debates about it. as an addict, I still believe it's a behavioral problem. So here's what I'll say to that. I'll say people are better off acting as if it's a behavioral problem in terms of solutions, whether it's true or not. Because even if it was genetic, I would say you may as well act as if it's behavioral, especially if you're a parent of one. Why wouldn't you? What's the point if not? So that's kind of how I would see it. And some of these debates that we have, it's debatable how important it even is. Like, how important is it if it's genetic or traumatic or trauma? Now, I think it's like for the people that are parents of a narcissistic kid, they are the ones that like hearing it's genetic because they were always told it was all their fault. So that's a thing that happens. But ultimately, I would say, both of them contribute, is what I would say. Dr. Salerno believes that it's probably not going to happen. Someone's not going to develop a full-blown personality disorder unless they have that genetic component. But at the end of the day, you're a parent and you recognize those behaviors in a kid. What do? You do the video I said the other day. You call out the behaviors and you enforce consequences, because what else could you do? There's nothing else to do. That's all you can do. And if you're a victim of someone, does it really matter if that person is genetically a narcissist or a narcissist because of trauma? I would say no. I mean, I think some people would say it helps them to think it's genetic for whatever reason, but I would say at the end of the day, no, it doesn't matter. You still got to do what you got to do. But what I hear them say is, oh, I believed their victim tale when they said it was trauma based. Oh, I was abused so much. It helped them spin a tale of woe. But in reality, they have not all been abused. There's people that are borderlines that had good parents. There's people that are narcissistic that have had good parents. And it's like Dr. Simon said, a lot of them will really exaggerate their victimhood while simultaneously downplaying how badly they mistreated others. It's a very tricky thing. Rooted says, I believe it's from trauma. It don't give them an excuse. It's up to them to do what it takes to get help and heal, but can they really ever change? Can they actually change? Or it could be activated. I mean, I think trauma makes it worse. I'll put it this way. Trauma is not going to make it better, right? You got that genetic component. Trauma is not going to make it better. All it can never do is make it worse. Can they change? I would say it's very rare. And most times they would absolutely not. And but even asking that question is a problematic question, because it doesn't matter if they can. What you really need to pay attention to is, how is the person that you think is that way? How is the narcissist in your life? How are they acting? That's what matters. Doesn't matter what some other narcissist, not related to you in any way, not in your life in any way, it doesn't matter what they can do. That part doesn't matter. What does matter is how the person in your life is acting. That's what matters. And also, there's varying degrees of severity. There are severe narcissists, moderate narcissists, less severe narcissists. And Curious One says, but not all who are traumatized abuse. Some people become people pleasers as a response to environment. Yes. Fawning people pleasing response. Yes. Hurt people when unhealed. Yeah. Meaning hurt people hurt others. True, Jared. I mean, here's the thing. Not everyone who's been traumatized, like Curious One says, becomes an abuser. So what I think happens is, hurt people who are unconscious, and lack empathy, and who are selfish, they hurt others. But not everyone who is hurt hurts others. Rooted says, I asked because my son has started picking up in the narc's behavior from being around his dad, because his dad gives him his way to make me look bad, of course. So now my son models his behavior. Well, I would say, to make sure that manipulation doesn't work around you. So if he tries that, I would say, no, that's not going to work here. There's going to be consequences. And he's not going to like it, probably. I don't know how old he is, but he's not going to like it. And it's going to be uncomfortable, probably, to hold your ground, but it's for his own good. Hugs rooted in motion, parental alienation. Yes. Yes, I would say. Ow, it don't what? He is grown now, but because I wouldn't put up with it, he left my house around 15 years old to be with him. I mean, hey, you did the right thing. You stood your ground, and he went with the person that he thought that he can get more of his way with. And unfortunately, when they're old enough to make that decision, they're allowed to make that decision. And then that's the thing people don't talk about either, is when the kid takes the narcissistic parent's side. And it's like almost one of those things, if you try to convince them, they're just going to push back even harder. So it becomes very tough. That's very tough. I have a friend that's in a similar situation where the guy has recruited the son to his side, and then the son is horrible to my friend, his mother, and it's just awful to hear. Yes, I didn't even fight it because it wasn't going to help to do so. Yeah, that's what I would say to do. I agree with that. My friend says no, she wants to fight it. She doesn't want to let him live with him. And I get it, but they're making her life a living hell in the meantime. And for the son, I would say if he's going to be a little brat, because the kid is being a little brat, like, and it's easy for me to say because it's not my kid. But when someone is being a brat like that, I don't want to deal with it at all. I'm done. You're going to be a brat? You're not going to disrespect me. You're not going to disrespect your mother. You're not going to try to get me in trouble with the law. And that does happen too. I mentioned that the other day about kids calling CPS sometimes. That happens, Child Protective Services. And sometimes it's orchestrated by the narcissistic parent. And they said, yes, remember our game plan. Try to get your mother in trouble, or try to get your father in trouble. Yes, it would have been nothing but a fight the whole time if I would have made him stay. Yeah, so I get it. I get it. So you let him make his choice. You can do anything you want to if you're willing to suffer the consequences, is what they say. Yeah. I agree with what you did. My friend wouldn't, but I do. I agree with what you did. Because there's no, what else? I don't see the point. I don't see the point if in fighting it. Like they're going to do what they do. Once you get to a certain age, you can't control them anymore. It's like, no, you've raised them the way you did, and then their decisions are on them at a point. Gotta let go and let God, as they say, at a point. Or let go and let the universe, or whatever you believe in. That's what I would say. But all right. I think it's about time to wrap this one up. I'm running out of steam. A little more tired today. But if you got this far, please remember to like the video if you liked it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here. And maybe share this video with someone else that you think might benefit from it. Good night, Danielle. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. If they do, squeeze them nice and tight. They won't come back tomorrow. I've never heard that before. I have to take a picture of that. It's a good little rhyme. Where'd you learn that, Danielle? All right, Jared, you need your beauty sleep. Glad I caught the live stream again. I'm glad you're around here, curious one. I'm a crankopotamus without my sleep. Rooted in Motion says, yes, I protected him from him as long as I could, but when he turned teen and old enough to leave, that's when his dad came back in behind my back and got my son on his side by giving him his way. Yeah, that's how they do it. They recruited him basically as a flying monkey. I like it. There's another like a prayer before lunch. Good meat, good grief. Let's eat. Tejas, the tail ends here. Ellie says, you're going to do a live soon. What do you mean? After this one, you mean? Probably not tomorrow. Probably Wednesday. Wednesday or Thursday. I don't know. Maybe if I am up to it, I'm going to try to do one of these every night. I just kind of sometimes, I run out of topic ideas sometimes. Although, yeah, I mean, probably Wednesday or Thursday, if I had to guess. But every short could technically be one of these. And like I was saying earlier, I might do a longer form video. So in this example, I would have done how narcissists condition you to be grateful for the bare minimum. Did like a 10 to 15 video, recorded video on that, and then do a live stream reiterating it and like asking questions about it. We'll see. I might do that. People said they would like that. But we'll see if it's interesting for people or if they think it's too much of the same topic. Rooted says, I asked because your speech stance or rhythm is nice. I noticed that about you in your videos. I'll enjoy listening to you talk. Nice job. Thank you. I mean, it's a different tone and rhythm when it's live versus a short, versus even a recorded video for that matter. It's easier for me to be conversational on a live as I'm actually talking to people and then monologuing on and off. It's a different experience. But I think like part of my thinking also is a live video now is something that you're not going to see AI do. AI will not be doing that. AI will not be community building like that. AI can do a long form recorded video. AI can do a short video. So it's like, okay, well, as a human being, what's my advantage over that? The live stream. Doing a live stream and talking to people, that's the advantage that I see. And even in the narcissistic abuse space, who's going live like this in the narcissistic abuse space? Do you know anyone? I know occasionally it happens on TikTok, but who does it on YouTube? Does Lee Hammock do it? I think Batwolf might do it. But he's a self-aware narcissist. Yes, that's what I would say, Rooted. So human beings are going to have to accentuate their assets or they will just be replaced by AI. So, but Ellie, Wednesday or Thursday, because tomorrow I'll be interviewing Cece. So it'll be Wednesday or Thursday, more than likely. And maybe, no, we'll say that. Anything else will be a bonus. How about that? All right. But I'll be over and out here for everyone. So long to George, wherever he is too. And thanks to everyone who was commenting here. Cheryl, hope things get better for you as well out there. Try to come to America if you can, because it doesn't sound like it's going too well where you are over there. But till the next time. Glad you found me too, miss. Hugs right back.